Welcome to my channel, where we slow down, relax, and gently drift off to sleep. I'm Tony Dong, your host, and I'm so glad you're joining us tonight. The soft glow of a late afternoon sun bathed the courtyard in a golden light, casting long shadows over the cobblestone path. Beyond the high stone walls, a chorus of birds filled the air with their cheerful melodies, and the sweet perfume of blooming roses drifted on the breeze. It was a scene so peaceful, it could almost make you forget the whispers that haunted the grand manor at the edge of town. Elara stepped carefully through the ornate iron gate, her shoes clicking against the weathered stones. The manor loomed, a head tall, silent, and strangely inviting. Its many windows reflected the sky like pools of glass. And though the place was beautiful, there was a weight to it. Stories had been told for years about the monster who lived here. None of them were kind. She had first heard the tales as a child about a man cursed into a fearsome form, who kept to himself and rarely ventured into the village. Some claimed he was dangerous. Others swore he was simply mad. Her own reasons for coming here, and they had nothing to do with gossip. The main doors opened with a low creak, revealing a tall figure in the shadows. His shoulders were broad, his frame imposing, and his face unusual. It wasn't the grotesque horror the villagers described, but there was something in his features, something sharp and wild that unsettled her. His eyes, however, were startlingly human. "Welcome," he said, his voice deep but calm. "You must be the one they sent." She nodded, her fingers tightening on the strap of her satchel. He gave a slight smile, though it was hard to tell if it was from politeness or genuine warmth, and stepped aside to let her in. The entrance hall was grand, yet worn, its marble floor dulled with age, its chandelier draped in a thin veil of dust. From somewhere deeper in the manor came the faint scent of burning wood as they walked. Elara tried not to stare at him, but curiosity got the better of her. "You live here alone?" "Mostly," he replied. "The staff keeps to themselves. It's better that way." They reached the library, and Elara's breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling shelves stretched as far as she could see, crammed with books in every size and color. Sunlight streamed through tall, arched windows, casting golden light across the polished wood. She could have happily lost herself here for weeks. Her host, whose name she learned was Lucian, watched her reaction with the faintest glimmer of amusement. "Impressive, isn't it?" "It's extraordinary," she admitted, running her fingers lightly over the spine of a leather-bound volume. Lucian moved with quiet grace, his large hands surprisingly delicate as he pulled a book from the shelf. "This collection has been built over generations. Some of these volumes are older than the manor itself. For hours, they worked side by side, sorting and recording titles. Lucian spoke little, but when he did, his words carried weight-furring small fragments of history or observations that hinted at a mind both sharp and deeply thoughtful. As the day faded into evening, Ilara found herself unexpectedly at ease in his presence. Still, she couldn't ignore the unease that lingered beneath her curiosity. Something about him, about this whole place, felt like a puzzle she hadn't yet found the edges of. Later, over a simple dinner in the dining hall, Lucian surprised her with a question. "What do they say about me in the village?" She hesitated, unsure if honesty would offend him. "They say you're not like other people." "That's true," he said plainly, with no trace of bitterness. "But what they mean is that I'm a beast." Lara's fork paused midair. "And are you?" His gaze met hers, steady and unreadable. "That depends on how you define the word." The firelight flickered between them, painting his features in warm gold and deep shadow. In that moment, she wasn't sure whether she was speaking to a man, a monster, or something in between. As the weeks passed, Ilara's visits to the manor became more frequent. At first, she told herself it was only for the sake of the library project, but the truth was more complicated. She was drawn to Lucian not despite his strange appearance, but because of the way he seemed to see the world differently. Sometimes, she'd find him reading in the garden, the pale blooms of the rose bushes surrounding him like a crown. Other times, he'd be in the study, poring over maps and ancient texts. He asked questions that made her think, and he listened to her answers as though they mattered. Yet, the mystery of who or what he truly was remained unsolved. She noticed the way some villagers would avoid the road leading to the manor, the way they'd fall silent when she passed. She overheard snatches of conversation in the marketplace. "He's cursed. It's dangerous to get close. No one comes back the same." One late afternoon, as rain swept across the hills, Ilara found Lucian in the conservatory, staring out at the storm. His reflection in the glass seemed almost different. The sharpness in his features softened, and for a moment, she could have sworn she saw someone else, entirely a man, with an unguarded expression, free from whatever shadow clung to him. When she blinked, the image was gone. "Do you believe in curses?" he asked suddenly, not turning from the window. She thought of the stories, of the strange shift she'd just seen. "I'm not sure," she said carefully, "but I believe people can be misunderstood." Lucian's lips curved faintly, though his eyes remained fixed on the rain. "Misunderstood," he echoed, as though tasting the word It was in moments like this, between silence and revelation, that Ilara began to wonder if the real truth about him had less to do with monsters and more to do with the quiet loneliness of a man set apart from the world. The seasons turned. The roses bloomed, withered, and bloomed again. And with each passing day, the lines between curiosity and affection blurred. One evening, as twilight deepened over the manor, Lucien guided her into a hidden wing she had never seen before. Dust motes danced in the fading light, and behind, carved wooden door, lay a room filled with treasures, gowns of silk and lace, delicate jewelry, and a single velvet-lined box containing a ring of deep blue stone. Ilara reached out instinctively, her fingers brushing the cool surface. It sparkled even in the dim light, as though it held some private secret. "You like it," Lucien observed quietly. She drew her hand back. "It's beautiful." He said nothing more, only closed the box and returned it to its place. Unspoken hung in the air between them promise, or perhaps a question neither of them was ready to voice. Outside, the night deepened, and the manor seemed to breathe with the shadows. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled over the hills, and, though she didn't know it yet, Ilara's life and Lucien's was about to change forever. The days that followed felt like a delicate dance between light and shadow. Ilara threw herself into the library work, cataloging the seemingly endless volumes. But her mind often wandered back to that hidden chamber with its treasures, the blue. Sapphire ring had left an impression on her, not just because of its beauty, but because it seemed to symbolize something larger, something unspoken between her and Lucien. Lucien, for his part, became more open, though always guarded. He shared stories from his youth, tales of a time when the manor was filled with laughter and life before tragedy and isolation took hold. His voice carried a soft melancholy, a longing for something lost to time. One chilly autumn afternoon, Ilara arrived to find the manor shrouded in mist. The gardens were a tapestry of burnt orange and crimson, the rose bushes now resting beneath a gentle layer of fallen leaves. Inside, the air smelled of old paper and wood smoke. Lucien was in the library, hunched over an ancient manuscript, the flickering candlelight casting his face in sharp relief. He looked up as she entered, a faint smile touching his lips. "Good timing," he said. "I was just reading about an old philosopher who believed the key to breaking curses lay not in magic, but in understanding the human heart." Ilara raised an eyebrow. "And do you think that applies to you?" Key laughed a low, rich sound that surprised her, perhaps. Or maybe it's just a comforting idea. As the days grew shorter and colder, the manor took on a more intimate atmosphere. The grand halls, once echoing with emptiness, were filled with the quiet sounds of companionship. The crackling fire, the turning of pages, the soft murmur of conversation. One evening, after a hearty meal, Lucien asked if Ilara would help him tidy the neglected gardens. She agreed, and together they braved the chill to clear away the last remnants of the season's decay. As they worked, Lucien spoke quietly about the manor's past, about his mother and the rose bush she had planted, a symbol of hope and renewal amidst the shadows. Ilara listened, touched by his tenderness toward something so fragile in a place so imposing. But despite the warmth they shared, the villagers remained wary. When a group of local workers came to help restore the grounds, whispers followed them like a shadow. Some spoke of Lucien as if he were a creature of a nightmare. Others simply avoided the estate altogether. Ilara found herself defending him more than once. Frustrated by the unfairness, one afternoon she caught a group of men mocking Lucien as he stood by the window. Their cruel words carried on the wind. "Doesn't it bother you?" she asked him later, voice heavy with concern. He shook his head slowly. "I've lived long enough to know that people fear what they don't understand. I try not to let it hurt me, but they don't even give you a chance. Sometimes kindness is its own reward, even if it goes unseen." She admired his resilience, but wished the world could see him as she did not, as a beast, but as a man shaped by experience, by loss, by hope. Winter crept in, blanketing the manor in snow. The once vibrant gardens lay quiet beneath the frost, and the winds howled through the empty corridors. Yet inside, the hearth burned bright, and Ilara and Lucien found comfort in their shared routines. One night, as the wind rattled the windows, Lucien opened up about the curse that bound him, not a curse of magic, but of his own making. He spoke of his reckless youth, of mistakes that led to isolation and sorrow, and of a mysterious woman who had foretold his fate during a night long ago. She said, "I would be trapped here until I learned what it truly means to be human." He told Ilara, eyes distant, "I have spent decades searching for that understanding in these books, but perhaps I've been looking in the wrong place." Ilara reached out, placing a hand over his. "Maybe it's not just about knowledge. Maybe it's about connection, about letting others in, even when it's hard." He nodded slowly, a flicker of hope in his gaze. Spring finally arrived, bringing with it the promise of renewal. The rose bushes bloomed once more, their vibrant petals a stark contrast to the cold, gray winter that had passed. Ilara found herself deeply settled into life at the manor. The library had become her sanctuary, and Lucien's company a source of quiet joy. She began to write letters home, reassuring her family of her well-being and the kindness she had found here. One day, she asked Lucien if she might organize for some villagers to help tend the gardens. He hesitated, but ultimately agreed, warning her that many were still afraid of the estate's reputation. With patience and gentle persuasion, a small group arrived, carefully restoring the grounds while respecting the delicate rosebush Lucien's mother had planted. Ilara overheard some of their whispered judgments and felt a pang of sadness for the loneliness that still clung to Lucien's name. But Lucien remained unshaken. "I have learned to bear their scorn," he said quietly. "Better to focus on the kindness that exists, even if it is rare." Ilara admired his wisdom and felt her own resolve strengthen. She was determined to help change the story of this place, not just for Lucien, but for herself as well. As summer approached, the manor seemed to breathe new life. Windows were thrown open to welcome the warm breeze, and laughter occasionally echoed through the halls. Ilara and Lucien spent long afternoons reading in the pergola, surrounded by blooms and the gentle hum of bees. Their bond deepened in the quiet moments between work and rest. Lucien's sharp intellect and dry humor emerged alongside the tenderness she had glimpsed from the start. Yet the outside world remained a challenge. Invitations to family events stirred a conflict within Elaratson between her roots and her new life. She wrestled with the decision of whether to leave the manor and return to the village for her sister's wedding. She proposed a daring plan to Lucien, that he accompany her, that they face the villagers together. He was reluctant, fearful of the judgment and whispers that awaited him. But her insistence and her belief in his true nature eventually swayed him. Preparations began, with Gabriel, the loyal steward, assisting in arranging a proper suit for Lucien, something to present him not as a relic of a forgotten era, but as a man worthy of respect. The day of departure arrived, and the carriage rolled down the road beneath a canopy of green leaves and golden sunlight. The journey was quiet at first, but soon familiar, lively conversation blossomed between them, revealing a warmth that even the villagers had yet to see. As they approached the village, Ilara's heart raced not just with anticipation, but with a fierce protectiveness over the man by her side. At the cottage, family members gathered, their curious eyes sharp and often unkind. Whispers and barely concealed laughter greeted Lucien, and though he remained composed, Ilara sensed the sting beneath the politeness. The wedding itself was a bittersweet affair. The church was small, and the congregation's gaze heavy. The celebration afterward felt distant and cold to the parasolated in the crowd, observed but never truly welcomed. When cruel words about Lucien's appearance were overheard, Something inside Ilara snapped. Stepping forward with unwavering voice, she declared her truth to the crowd, challenging their prejudices and demanding recognition for the man she knew. Her words hung in the air, powerful and raw, as the villagers paused, caught between disbelief and reflection. In that moment, something changed, not just for Lucien, but for all who had doubted. Ilara's courage lifted the veil of fear and misunderstanding, revealing the true heart beneath the beast. And as she looked at Lucien, no longer did she see the shadows of legend, but the man she had come to love whole, unbroken, and free at last. The moment Ilara spoke, silence swept over the gathering like a sudden calm after a storm. Faces that had been filled with skepticism and derision now showed a flicker of uncertainty. No one quite knew how to respond to her fierce defense of Lucien for Ilara. The words came from deep within, an outpouring of everything she had come to believe about the man beside her. She knew that no amount of scorn or gossip could diminish the kindness, intelligence, and strength he had shown her every day at the manor. Lucien stood quietly, his expression softening as he met her gaze. It was as if the very act of Ilara's declaration lifted a weight he had carried for years. For a brief moment, he looked every bit the man she had come to see, a dignified figure, his handsome features illuminated by the fading sunlight. Though some villagers continued their murmured whispers, many exchanged uncertain glances, caught between old prejudices and the undeniable truth in Ilara's words. The heavy veil of fear that had cloaked Lucien for so long seemed to lift, revealing the possibility of acceptance. As the celebration resumed, it was different, somehow lighter, freer. Smiles returned, and some neighbors approached Lucien with tentative warmth. The children, ever innocent to the weight of adult judgment, played nearby without fear. Ilara felt a swell of hope rising within her. She saw how powerful kindness and courage could be, especially when wielded with sincerity. After the festivities, as the evening settled, Ilara and Lucien returned to the inn where they were staying. The quiet intimacy of the room allowed them to shed the day's tension. Lucien reached for the small velvet box Ilara had seen before, the one containing the sapphire ring. "You were the only one who truly saw me," he said softly. "Not the shadow the world painted, but the man beneath." With gentle hands, he slipped the ring onto her finger. It sparkled under the lamplight, a symbol not just of beauty, but of transformation, of love, breaking through barriers and healing old wounds. Ilara smiled, her heart full. This ring, once hidden away, represented the bond they shared and the new chapter unfolding for both of them. the journey back to the manor was filled with a sense of renewal. The seasons had shifted, and with them came a promise of brighter days. The gardens bloomed again under Ilara's care, and the manor's once silent halls echoed with warmth and laughter. Lucien shed his old garments, trading them for the new suit that Gabriel had helped procure. It was more than just clothes, it was a declaration to the world that he was ready to reclaim his place, not as a forgotten lord or a cursed figure, but as a man deserving of respect and companionship. Back at the manor, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Ilara and Lucien worked side by side, tending to the estate and each other. The library became their shared refuge, a place of learning and laughter. Though some rooms in the vast house remained locked and silent, the parts they inhabited felt alive with hope and possibility. The grand dining hall saw more meals shared. The hearth's flames danced with newfound warmth, and the rose bushes blossomed as if reflecting the happiness blooming between them. Ilara found joy in the small things, dusting the shelves, arranging flowers, cooking simple meals. She took pride in her role as steward of the manor, feeling a deep sense of belonging that had once seemed impossible. Lucien's demeanor softened in her presence. Gone were the shadows of loneliness and despair. In their place was a quiet strength, grounded in the knowledge that he was no longer alone. Together, they faced the future with hope. The lessons learned from the past of kindness, humility, and courage had woven a new story, one where love and acceptance triumphed over fear and isolation. As the summer sun dipped below the horizon, Ilara and Lucien sat beneath the pergola, surrounded by the fragrant blooms that had survived the season's trials. The air was thick with the scent of roses and the soft songs of evening birds. Lucien reached into his pocket and, with a twinkle in his eye, recited a favorite line from one of his many books. "In the middle of everything is the sun." He smiled. "At Ilara, you have become that sun in my life." She laughed softly, her heart swelling with affection. "And you've become my home." As twilight deepened, they remained side by side, two souls who had found each other amidst shadows and light, ready to face whatever the future might hold together. The days that followed the wedding brought a new rhythm to life at the manor. Ilara and Lucien settled into a quiet companionship that filled the once lonely halls with warmth. Gabriel, their loyal steward, found his spirits lifted by the brighter atmosphere, no longer burdened by the weight of silence and neglect. With Ilara's keen eye for order and Lucien's growing confidence, the estate began to transform. The dusty corridors were swept clean, windows thrown open to invite fresh air, and the once stifling rooms slowly came back to life. The servants, though few, found renewed purpose, and even the garden bloomed brighter under Ilar's attentive care. Lucien's library became their sanctuary, surrounded by shelves lined with ancient tomes and countless volumes of philosophy, poetry, and science. The two spent long hours discussing ideas and sharing thoughts. Ilara, though less learned, absorbed the knowledge eagerly, inspired by Lucien's passion and insight. Yet, there were still moments when shadows crept in. Lucien's past regrets and the loneliness that had defined so many years sometimes weighed heavily on him. At those times, Ilara's presence was a balm reminder that he was no longer bound by the isolation that had once consumed him. One chilly autumn evening, as the wind whispered through the trees and leaves danced across the courtyard, Ilara found Lucien seated by the fire, a distant look in his eyes. The flickering flames cast long shadows, but Ilara saw beyond them, sensing the depth of his thoughts. "Tell me what's on your mind," she said gently, settling beside him. Lucien sighed, his gaze fixed on the dancing firelight. "I've spent so long searching for redemption, for a way to atone for my past mistakes. I feared that I might never find peace." Ilara took his hand, her touch warm and steady. "You found peace when you opened your heart, not just to me, but to kindness and forgiveness. That's true strength, Lucien." He smiled faintly, squeezing her hand. "It's easy to forget that sometimes, over the coming weeks, the manor embraced the coming winter with a quiet grace. The snow blanketed the grounds in pristine white, softening the world outside and creating a peaceful cocoon. Inside, the hearths glowed with steady warmth, and laughter often echoed through the rooms as Ilara, Lucien, and Gabriel shared simple meals and stories. Ilara continued writing letters to her family, reassuring them of her well-being and the new life she had built. Her correspondence became a lifeline, connecting her past with her present, bridging worlds that once felt so far apart. As the harshest days of winter passed, whispers of spring began to stir. Buds peeked from beneath the frost, and the promise of renewal filled the air. The rosebush, so tenderly cared for by Ilara, burst into bloom once more, a vibrant symbol of the manor's transformation. One morning, a messenger arrived with news. From Ilara's family, her youngest sister was to be married in the coming weeks. Ilara felt the pull of home, the familiar ties that had never truly faded. Yet, leaving Lucien so soon after their own journey together was difficult to imagine. After thoughtful discussion, Ilara proposed a bold idea. Lucien would accompany her to the wedding, staying nearby so they could face the event together. Though hesitant, fearing the judgment of others, Lucian agreed, moved by her resolve. Preparations began in earnest. Gabriel arranged for new attire to be made for Luciana's suit in the current style. Simple and dignified, meant to help him blend in and make a fresh impression. The manor buzzed with a mixture of excitement and nerves as the day of departure approached. Their journey to Alira's village was swift. The carriage rolling through sun-dappled forests and open fields. Conversation flowed easily between them. Laughter lightening the air as they shared stories and dreams. Ilara caught glimpses of the man she loved, confident, kind, and alive in a way that no enchantment could mask. But arrival brought new challenges. Ilara's family greeted them with a mixture of curiosity and awkwardness, while whispers and sideways glances followed Lucian wherever he went. Old prejudices and fears clung stubbornly to the villagers, and the warmth of the manor seemed distant. Here, throughout the wedding ceremony and celebrations, Lara and Lucian stood side by side, weathering the cold stares and whispered judgments. Yet, through it all, Ilara's fierce loyalty never wavered. She held his hand tightly, her presence a shield against the world's cruelty. When cruel words cut through the festive air, Ilara's voice rang clear and strong, cutting through the haze of gossip and doubt. Her heartfelt defense of Lucian was a beacon of courage, challenging the villagers to see beyond their fears and embrace the truth she had come to know. Though the path was not easy, the seeds of change had been planted. And as the sun set on the wedding day, Ilara and Lucian returned to the manor, hearts intertwined and spirits unbroken, ready to continue their story, one of resilience, love, and hope. Back at the manor, the air felt lighter, renewed by the strength Ilara had shown and the quiet victories. Lucian, too, seemed transformed. The weight of judgment from the village had pressed heavily on him, but her unwavering support reminded him he was more than the whispers. Days turned into weeks as the seasons shifted, bringing fresh blooms and warmer breezes. The estate thrived under Ilara's steady hand, and the once somber halls echoed with a sound of contentment. Gabriel busied himself with tending to the gardens and maintaining the household, while Ilara and Lucian found solace in each other's company. Evenings were often spent beneath the pergola in the garden, where the scent of roses mingled with the cool air. There, they would share dreams and plans for the future, their conversations flowing as freely as the gentle summer wind. One afternoon, as golden sunlight filtered through the leaves, Ilara noticed Lucian lingering near the rose bush his mother had planted. The vibrant blooms seemed to glow in his presence, a living testament to the life they were nurturing together. He looked up, catching her gaze, and smiled a smile full of gratitude and newfound hope. "This place has given me so much," he said softly. "Not just a home, but a chance to be better than I was." Ilara stepped closer, her hand brushing a petal with care. "You've earned that chance, Lucien. We've both come so far." Their bond deepened with each passing day, woven together by shared challenges and quiet moments of understanding. The enchantment that had once clouded Lucien's appearance seemed less important now. What mattered was the man he was inside, kind and thoughtful, strong and gentle. One evening, under a sky awash with stars, Lucien reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it slowly, he revealed the sapphire ring Ilara had admired months before the one found in the mysterious lady's chamber. Shimmering like a secret kept safe through time. "You were the only one who saw me," he said, his voice steady yet tender. "Not the curse, not the past, but me. You brought me back to myself." Ilara's eyes shone with tears as she accepted the ring, slipping it onto her finger. The sapphire caught the light, sparkling with promise. "I want to be part of your story from now on." Their vows were exchanged in the courtyard, surrounded by the blooming roses and the songs of birds welcoming a new beginning. Friends and faithful servants gathered, bearing witness to a union built on patience, understanding, and the quiet power of kindness. As the seasons continued their dance, Ilara and Lucien's story became one of hope, proof that even the darkest spells can be broken by the light of love and the courage to look beyond appearances. Together, they faced whatever came next, ready to write new chapters filled with joy, discovery, and the unshakable bond they had forged in a place once shadowed by regret, but now radiant with possibility. Life at the manor settled into a comforting rhythm, one where every corner held a memory and every sunrise promised something new. Ilara found herself growing into her role, not just as a caretaker, but as a true steward of the estate's legacy. Each morning, she'd wake to the soft light filtering through tall windows. The house no longer a place of shadows, but of warmth in life. Lucien, too, blossomed in this environment. Freed from the heavy weight of isolation, he embraced his days with renewed vigor. Gone were the days of hiding away. Now, he was often seen walking through the gardens, engaging with the few villagers brave enough to visit, and sharing gentle smiles with those who once turned away. The villagers' attitudes, once steeped in fear and rumor, began to soften. Slowly but surely, stories of the once feared lord's kindness started to spread. They spoke of his quiet generosity, his thoughtful nature, and how Ilara's presence had sparked a light in him that no curse could dim. Ilara took great pride in the garden, especially the rose bush planted by Lucien's mother. It flourished under her care, its petals a vivid tapestry of color and fragrance, a living symbol of the estate's renewal. She often sat beside it, reflecting on how far they'd come and the secrets that still lingered within the ancient walls. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of violet and gold, Lucien invited Ilara to the library, a room that had once felt overwhelming but now held a special place in her heart. The walls were lined with countless books, their spines telling stories from every corner of the world and every era of time. They settled into the familiar leather chairs, the fire casting a gentle glow as Lucien reached for a warm volume. "There's still so much to learn," he said with a smile. "Not just from these books, but from each other." Ilara nodded, feeling a deep sense of contentment, "and we'll discover it all together." Outside, the night deepened, the stars twinkling like the pages of an unfinished story waiting to be written. Inside, the warmth of companionship filled the room, a testament to the power of kindness, courage, and the belief that even the most tangled histories can be transformed into tales of hope. Spring's arrival brought a fresh energy to the estate. The once muted gardens burst into life, painting the grounds with vibrant colors and sweet fragrances. Ilara had persuaded Lucien to open the manor's doors to the villagers, encouraging them to see the place not as a fortress of solitude, but as a welcoming home. Slowly, the village began to embrace the manor as part of their community. Ilara worked closely with the villagers, organizing small gatherings in the courtyard and inviting artisans and farmers to share their crafts and goods. These events became a bridge between the estate and the surrounding town, weaving bonds that had long been broken by fear and misunderstanding. Lucien, though still reserved, began to join these gatherings, offering genuine smiles and engaging in conversations. It was clear that the years of loneliness had softened, replaced by a newfound purpose and connection. One afternoon, as Ilara walked through the blooming gardens, she noticed a group of children playing near the rose bush. Their laughter filled the air, a sound that had been absent from the manor for far too long. Watching them, she realized how much had changed, not just in the estate, but within herself. Yet, despite the progress, there were moments when the shadows of the past crept in. Ilara found old letters and faded photographs tucked away in hidden drawers, hinting at stories of love, loss, and regret. She was determined to uncover these mysteries, believing that understanding the past was key to securing a brighter future. One evening, as she pored over an old journal by candlelight, Lucian appeared beside her. "You've brought light back to this place," he said, softly. "And perhaps, through you, I can finally find peace with what I've left behind." Ilara smiled, reaching for his hand. Their journey was far from over, but with each step forward, the manor transformed not. Just a house, but a home filled with hope, healing, and the promise of new beginnings. As summer approached, the estate seemed to breathe with renewed life. Ilara and Lucian settled into a comfortable rhythm, balancing the chores of managing the manor with moments of quiet companionship. The library, once a place of solitude and study, became a shared sanctuary where they explored stories of old and dreams yet to come. Ilara discovered that Lucian's knowledge extended far beyond the books on the shelves. His insights into philosophy, history, and human nature revealed a man shaped by experience and introspection. In turn, she shared her own hopes and fears, building a connection grounded in mutual respect and understanding. One afternoon, word arrived from the village. A wedding was to be held for Ilara's sister. The invitation stirred conflicting emotions, joy for the celebration, but hesitation at leaving the manor she now called home. Lucian, sensing her turmoil, offered a surprising suggestion. "Why don't I accompany you?" he proposed gently. "Together, we can face whatever awaits." Though apprehensive about how the villagers would react to Lucian's presence, Ilara agreed. She believed in the goodness beneath his guarded exterior and hoped others might see it too. The journey to her family's home was filled with quiet conversation and shared smiles. For Lucian, it was his first time beyond the estate's walls in many years. And though he moved cautiously, the warmth of Ilara's company eased his nerves. Upon arrival, the family's mixed reactions were evident: curiosity, skepticism, and barely concealed whispers. Ilara's siblings exchanged glances, and her brother's subtle but pointed remarks made her cheeks flush with embarrassment. Yet Lucian remained composed, greeting them politely despite the undercurrent of judgment. Ilara stood by his side, proud of the man he was becoming, and unwilling to let past prejudices dictate their future. Throughout the wedding festivities, they felt like outsiders, watched but not welcome. The villagers' hushed gossip and sideways glances were a stark reminder of the barrier still to be broken. In a bold moment, Ilara stepped forward and addressed the gathering. Her voice was clear and steady as she defended Lucian's character and challenged the misconceptions that had long overshadowed him. "I believed you were a good people," she said, "and I thought his kindness would speak for itself. But your silence has spoken volumes. Lucian is more worthy of respect than any of you here." Her words hung in the air, silencing the crowd. She glanced at Lucian, who now appeared transformed not just in their eyes, but to herself as well. In that moment, the enchantment that had cloaked him seemed to lift. The features that once inspired fear and misunderstanding were replaced by the man she had come to know, dignified, gentle, and deserving of love. The villagers resumed their celebrations, seemingly oblivious to the extraordinary change that had taken place. But for Ilara and Lucian, the veil had been lifted, and a new chapter was beginning. Under the twilight sky, they returned to the estate, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future held together. Back at the estate, life blossomed anew. The gardens, once neglected and wild, now flourished under Ilar's care. The roses, especially the treasured bush planted by Lucian's mother, bloomed vibrantly, filling the air with their sweet fragrance. Their beauty symbolized the healing and transformation that had taken place not just in the grounds, but within the hearts of those who lived there. One evening, twilight cast soft shadows over the chateau. Ilara and Lucian sat beneath the pergola, savoring the quiet comfort of the garden. Lucian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, the very ring Ilara had admired long ago in the forgotten lady's chamber. "You were the only one who saw me for who I truly am," he said softly, his eyes reflecting gratitude and affection. "You've brought light back into this place and into my life." With a gentle smile, he slipped the sapphire ring onto Ilara's finger, its deep blue gleaming in the fading light. It was more than a symbol. It was a promise of shared strength, understanding, and love as they sat together. Lucian quoted from one of his many treasured books, a line from Copernicus that had long resonated with him. "In the center of everything is the sun." With a playful wink, he added, "You, Ilara, have become that sun in my world." Ilara laughed, feeling a warmth that had little to do with the lingering heat of the day. She nodded, agreeing wholeheartedly. Together, they had weathered storms of loneliness, misunderstanding, and fear emerged stronger. Before the summer's end, surrounded by the fragrant roses and the gentle songs of birds, Ilara and Lucian exchanged vows in the courtyard. The chateau, once a place of shadow and silence, now echoed with joy and hope. Ilara looked at Lucian with a grateful heart, feeling a deep sense of belonging in a home that had once seemed so foreign. Through kindness, patience, and the pursuit of wisdom, of embracing the humanity within us all, and of the transformative magic that love and understanding can bring. And so, beneath the wide sky and among the blooming roses, Ilara and Lucian began their new life together as equals and as the true masters of their shared destiny.